Welcome to EdSource's latest roundtable. My name is Ann Vasquez, the CEO of EdSource. Transferring from community college to a four-year university can be a challenge in California. Most students who intend to transfer don't do so successfully. One of the solutions to simplify the process is a pathway called dual admission. Education leaders and policymakers in California and beyond believe it's a promising approach that can help students. In this type of program, students start at the community college but are guaranteed admission at the outset to a particular four-year university. This past fall, both California State University and the University of California began a slow rollout of dual admission programs. At our roundtable today, we'll talk about the path forward and look at how dual admission can make a difference in California. Lastly, EdSource would like to thank the Crimson Bridge Foundation for making today's roundtable possible. Now to our introductions. First, I'd like to welcome to our panel Jaden Todd, a student at Northern Virginia Community College in the advanced program, which is a partnership between Northern Virginia Community College and George Mason University. Please also welcome Hans Johnson, a senior fellow at the Public Policy Institute of California Higher Education Center, as well as a member of the PPIC Economic Policy Center. Next, I'd like to introduce April Gromo, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Strategic Enrollment Management at the California State University Office of the Chancellor. I'd also like to give a special welcome to John Stanskas, Vice Chancellor of Educational Services and Support at California Community Colleges. Please also welcome Noel Corral, who is the Executive Vice President of Student Services at Long Beach City College. Our moderator today is EdSource reporter Michael Burke. Michael, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Before I get started, I just want to actually start with a point of clarification for any of our audience members who, I'm sure some people are confused. This panel, as Anne mentioned, is about dual admission, not dual enrollment, which is an entirely different topic that I'm sure a lot of people are also interested in. But today we're talking about dual admission. And I want to start with you, Hans, because I know you've done some research into dual admission and obviously transfer more broadly. So can you tell us a little bit about, why dual admission is seen as a potentially promising approach that could work out in California and maybe sort of what separates it from the other transfer pathways that exist in California?
Yeah, thanks, Michael and Anne and EdSource for, I think, a very timely conversation on what we hope will be part of the solution to California's transfer problem. So let me unpack what I mean by California's transfer problem. More than almost any other state, California depends on community colleges for higher education access. So let me just throw out a statistic. California ranks third in the country in the share of recent high school graduates that go to a community college. That's great. We rank 41st in the country in the share of students who go directly to a four-year college. And what that means then is that transfer students are critical to ensuring that California really provides a meaningful ladder of educational and economic mobility for our population. And there's so many parts of transfer that are difficult right now. Figuring out what courses you need to take in lower division, what college or major you're going to go into, and what you need to do to prepare for that. And we know that students who start at a four-year college, even with a similar academic record to students who started at community college, are much more likely to earn that bachelor's degree. We also know that the vast majority of first-time students coming into the community college have transfer as their primary goal. Our recent report, though, showed that only about 19% of transfer intending students successfully transferred within 4 years of entering a community college. And the share that did so in 2 years, which is kind of the ideal, was only 10%. So dual admission then is something that the legislature and the governor proposed and signed as a bill requiring both the University of California and the California State University system to come up with a program where students would be admitted to UC, the University of California, or CSU, California State University, provisionally. And the provision is they have to take their lower division courses at a community college and satisfy the requirements for transfer. And then they will be guaranteed admission to certain campuses. And we can get into the details, and I know we will in this discussion. The big picture here is the California State University's program is much larger, potentially much larger and more ambitious than the University of California's program. But at the end of the day, it's really important for us to ensure that transfer is as seamless as possible, that students have the information they need up front, that it's actionable, that they're able to take the courses they need and get through to transfer.
Thanks, Hans. And as Hans mentioned, really the main dual admission program in California right now, or at least the more robust one, is at California State University. So, April, can you tell us a little bit about the dual admission program at California State and sort of where it stands? I know this is the first year in effect. Could you tell us a little bit about, how things are going, what students are eligible, what you've kind of seen in the first year?
Sure. So we have really wanted to build a program that was one permanent because the legislation called the program a pilot program. So the CSU dual admissions program is a permanent program. And we also wanted to differentiate the name a little bit from dual enrollment. So our program is called the Transfer Success Pathway Program, or TSP for short. And this program is for students that are interested, that are leaving high school and interested in the transfer route, and were not able to come to the CSU due to academic, financial, or personal hardship reasons. So we've tried very hard to get the word out. Our first cohort was for fall 2023. We had a little over 2,000 students enroll in that program. And the way that they enroll in that program is through our CSU Transfer Planner, which was also launched with the Transfer Success Pathway program, that not only allows students to enroll in a TSP program, but also allows them to enter their coursework and transfer all of their information about transfer and track their progress. It also allows the community colleges as well as CSU counselors and advisors to work with those students directly. And then we also have a robust communication plan for all of those students. And we're starting to see students even transfer now because they took advantage of dual enrollment while they were in high school.
And just to clarify for our audience members, when we say it's more robust, maybe Hans, you can weigh in again. I do want to get to Jaden in a second to talk about his experience in dual admission, but the CSU program basically it seems like it's eligible, April, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically to any student who wasn't able to attend CSU right away for whether it's financial reasons, personal reasons, they couldn't take the required courses, whereas UC's is basically limited to students who were not able to complete their A through G requirements in high school, so a much smaller subset of students.
That's correct. The CSU program is open to any student who's taking the community college transfer route and was not able to attend a CSU due to academic, financial, or personal hardship reasons. Just another point of difference or clarification between the two programs, we don't require a student to have actually applied to the CSU to be eligible for the TSP program.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, UC requires that a student apply and actually not be eligible because they haven't completed the A through G courses, but have completed, earned a 3.0 GPA in those A through G courses they did take, a UC GPA. So it's a very odd kind of situation because most students who have not completed the A through G courses, if they're getting appropriate counseling, at least in the past from their high school, would be told not to apply to UC because they don't qualify. But in this case, students who haven't completed all those courses have decent grades and apply to UC, but don't have all the A through G courses, as I said, then could be offered this dual admission pathway. So it's a much smaller number of potential students than CSUs.
Got it. Thank you for oh, go ahead, John.
Well, just for scale, there's 162 community college students in the dual admission program for UC, and there's 2,008 students in the dual admission program for CSU, currently in the community colleges.
Got it. That's a good context to bring up. Thank you, John. So I do want to bring in Jaden because he is the student on the panel who's in a dual admission program, obviously outside of California. But as Ann mentioned, you're right now at Northern Virginia Community College, and you're in the advanced program, which is linked to George Mason University, which I believe is the largest public university out there in Virginia. So anyway, Jaden, could you tell us a little bit about just how you ended up in the program and just broadly kind of what your experience has been, what maybe if there's anything in particular that's benefited you in the program or how you feel about it in general?
Yeah, so pretty much my experience with the The advanced program is what we call it over in Northern Virginia. Um, I joined it because I got an email about free food being available to advanced specific students. And as most college students, I suffer from in need of food and free stuff in general. So after seeing the opportunity to get access to some free food, I signed up for the program, which was the only like requirements, if I remember correctly at the time, was you had to have be under 30 credits and then just and be a Nova student. And so signed up for it, got free food. But what really kind of kept me in the program was the fact that we had a thing called Pathways, or we have a thing called Pathways, which locks in what they expect while like what courses and whatnot they expect of me while I'm at Nova, while also locking in what courses they expect me to take in my bachelor's at GMU. And that's something I think the biggest benefit for like me in particular, because I'm interested, I'm an engineering major, but I'm interested computer science or computer engineering. And so I've kind of flip-flopped between the two, and I was able to see which way I'd be going because I saw the outcome at the very end. So I think those were like that was one of the biggest benefits. The other biggest benefit was definitely the ability to have like a community, or have access to that campus so I could have that community. And that's something that I don't think I'd have if, or I wouldn't have if this advanced program didn't exist, because I have access to everything a GMU student has access to, because I'm considered a GMU student, even though I'm at Nova. So I think those are like the biggest like benefits I think I've had.
Absolutely. And I wanted to open up this next question, sort of building off, well, there's a lot to build off what Jaden brought up, but starting with, he mentioned the Pathways tool in Virginia, and basically this idea that students in his dual admission program, up front, know the courses they need, not only to transfer, but to ultimately earn their bachelor's degree. Why is that important? I mean, because I understand that's also an element in the CSU dual admission program where right away students, based on the university, the program they've selected, they know all the courses they need up front. Why is that such an important part of dual admission, and how could that
So,
benefit students?
so
Whether it's
basically,
Jaden, go ahead, Jaden. Yeah.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Jaden.
So basically, I think the main importance has to come from, as a community college student, you have, so the community college will give you a like generic kind of pathway. So it'll have a history or, your English and whatnot. But then when you're looking at a 4-year university for their transfer stuff, some 4-year universities have a specification or a desire for you to have, a world history instead of an American history. Some may specify American history. And that's one of the bigger things when it comes to having a pathway, because it flat out says take these 3 classes, and you're good, or take one of these couple classes and you're good. It covers this, and this will be transferred as this. And so I think the fact that I'm able to see exactly not only what classes I need to take here at Nova, but also what it transfers to and what it transfer as, I think that's one of the biggest benefits of the program, because it's just I don't have to worry I'm wasting my money. I don't have to worry I'm wasting my time. I don't have to go back and forth. I don't have to wait. I don't have to be a junior taking freshman classes because I didn't know that this history class was a prereq for this other class. You know what I mean?
Of course, and that I remember from talking to you in the past that that sort of did happen, because I know you were considering also another university. I believe you told me that you found out after you had already taken a certain history class that maybe it was VCU, but you had found out that they
Yeah.
wouldn't accept.
Yeah. Yeah. It messed me up.
And if I could just add, in our experience here at Long Beach City College, we've had a long-standing partnership with Long Beach Unified and California State University Long Beach through our Long Beach College Promise, that started back in 2008. There was prior work through our Seamless Education that started well before that, into the late 90s. But one of the things that we kept hearing from our students, right? We did a great partnership in setting up the access to higher education for our Long Beach Unified partners. But once they were here, it was almost like a maze that they were trying to demystify and trying to figure out. So very similar to Jaden's experience, we were hearing that from our Long Beach Unified students here at the college. So one of the things that we ended up doing was looking at our partnership and trying to find ways to strengthen that partnership. And we created the Long Beach College Promise 2.0, right? So a way to enhance the supports, to move away from just a strong partnership between our intersegmental partnering institutions to a seamless pathway for our students. And we identified in working with our Long Beach State partners, the top 10 ADTs that they were seeing our students go there for, and the most popular ADTs. And we mapped the courses students would need to take in their first 2 years here at Long Beach City College and what it would look like in their last 2 years at California State University, Long Beach. And that required a lot of coordination between the instructional faculty at both Long Beach City College and at Long Beach State, in addition to counselors and advisors in both institutions. So it took a lot of coordination, a lot of dedicated time in order to clarify those paths. But that was kind of the impetus in trying to get at what Jaden experienced, which was, all of these different scenarios for all of these different pathways and institutions where we're seeing many of our local Long Beach Unified School District students wanting to go to Long Beach State, starting from early in elementary school, 4th grade tours to Long Beach City College, 5th grade tours to Long Beach State, so that we really instill that college going culture early on. But once they're here, curating a series of supports and programs for them so that they stay connected, as well as tapping into the supports at Long Beach State through our partnership. In fall of 2019, it was almost the pre-dual admissions that we were kind of piloting and exploring at Long Beach City College. And I might be jumping ahead here, but we ended up taking in a cohort of about 38 students in that first year that were committed, were interested in going to Long Beach State in one of these 10 majors. We were able to connect them with services and supports, identified counselors at Long Beach City College, took advantage of career services at Long Beach State, in addition to receiving Long Beach State IDs while they were still at Long Beach City College so that they can have access to certain special events at Long Beach State, including library, sporting events, etc. We saw after those first 2 years, 63% of them stay on course and complete and transfer to Long Beach State. So that was an excellent kind of first year pilot that we ended up implementing. From there, we saw a drastic increase in the number of students participating or affiliated with our Promise program. And we ended up scaling what experience those 38 students had to all College Promise students that were interested to attend Long Beach State. So in 2020, we had 162 students. And in 2021, that fall 2021 cohort had 774 students. So we're still tracking them and collecting data to assess the transfer rates for those cohorts. But for that fall 2019 cohort, we saw significant transfer rates compared to other populations.
Michael, I wanted to jump in with a question from the audience. We're getting a lot of good engagement and questions from folks who are listening in. And this is open to whomever would like to answer. A question came in about how to make it more equitable so that there are more community colleges that have these partnerships in California. The sentiment expressed in our chat was that it feels like there's some community college campuses are more privileged than others in terms of creating these direct paths to either the Cal State or UC system. Thoughts from anyone?
Well, I can start. So the Transfer Success Pathway program, as well as the CSU Transfer Planner, is really meant for any community college student to use it and enroll. So we purposely are creating a statewide system. We also know that students transfer or take courses at multiple community colleges, and we wanted all of that credit to be reflected in the system and for students to be able to accurately track how many units they've completed, what their transferable GPA is, and how they fulfilled general education and major prerequisites so that they truly understand the courses that they need to transfer. The other key piece to that is keeping students in the transfer pathway and helping them transfer in a timely manner. They're not running out of financial aid. It's important to note that for Pell Grant, students only get 600% or 6 years. And for Cal Grant, they only get 4 years of Cal Grant. So once they use those resources, they're done with those resources. So we really want students to understand and transfer in a really timely manner. But we also know that students are working, taking care of family members. And so we also want to be able to support those students where they are as well.
We've done a series of pieces at PPIC on the geography of college opportunity in California. And the attendee's question is a good one. And the answer is it partly does depend on where you live and where you go to college, the kinds of resources that are available to you, whether it's the community college and its focus and programs with respect to transfer and how well entrenched those programs are and advertised and made available to students or known to students, or whether it's you're close to a CSU campus that's one that you want to attend, makes a difference in terms of what's available to students. I think the big challenge in a big state like California is making sure that geography, income, and all kinds of other factors that are obstacles to students are minimized, and that it's done systematically, statewide, system-wide, with the systems all working together. And there's, some progress happening there, but I think there's a lot more progress we could make. And then just to kind of nerd out a little bit, there is this new effort called this Cradle to Career data system that is going to allow us for the first time to identify students who could have gone to a UC or CSU but never even applied. Where are they? What happened? And hopefully will lead to tools that the colleges can use and policymakers can push for that would allow students who could benefit from specific colleges and specific programs based on their academic record in high school to access those programs and know what those opportunities are for them. It's a big challenge, especially again in a big state like California.
And if I can add to Hans's point there, proximity certainly helps, right? Being able to engage with a local CSU within your geographic area, one, makes it convenient. Two, there's a high likelihood of students transferring to that CSU. But I would say starting off with the data and seeing where the students are transferring to, if you don't have a local CSU in your direct vicinity, so that you can start those dialogues and start those engagements with those CSUs that your students are going to. So National Clearinghouse data, it's a little delayed, but it'll at least give you an indication of where your students may be transferring to so that you can start those engaging conversations with what that partnership and what that enhancement might look like for the students that do go to those CSUs.
Well, we actually had some pretty timely news that I wanted to bring up yesterday. Chico State, one of the Cal State campuses in Northern California, announced, I believe it's like a memorandum of understanding, basically an agreement with 7 community colleges in Northern California, including some that I think are in some pretty remote parts of the state, for dual admission, basically formalizing dual admission and having very specific partnerships with these community colleges. I guess I'm curious. I don't know if April, you want to weigh in. Do you see some of these local agreements as being something that might be more common? Do you think there are any specific, advantages of CSUs in addition? Obviously, like you said, it's a statewide program, but could it help if some CSU campuses enter into very local agreements with community colleges?
Yes, and some of our campuses have had long-standing local agreements with different community colleges around them. We know that a lot of transfer students are place-bound, so sometimes that community college transfer process is local in nature. So in addition to Chico just signing, Fresno City College and Fresno State have signed an agreement, and they're even pulling resources to hire a dedicated transfer counselor to support these students, because that's definitely one of the challenges that we've seen is there's no funding provided for this program. And really, we need people that are specialized in transfer to support these students. And so we're having campuses do that with existing people and resources. I'll also share that Bakersfield College has a very strong relationship with Bakersfield, Cal State Bakersfield. They have a facility that's co-located, and we're seeing a lot of campuses do joint presentations and support for students in these programs. So I do think we'll start to see potentially some of those long-standing informal relationships strengthen, and then those MOUs start to come through as well.
You mentioned, April, there's no funding for dual admission. Is that something, I know you don't necessarily do legislative advocacy, but whether, April, you want to take this or anyone else, is that something that could help? Is that something that you think CSU or the community college system might advocate for in the future? More funding for these programs, could that help? And again, anyone can jump in on this one.
I certainly, from a community college perspective, I certainly agree in that, whenever there's a legislative change, having funding will help support that change and the implementation of it, right? At Long Beach City College, we, very similar to what April shared, we dedicated 2 of our general counselors and reassigned them to specifically support our efforts in our College Promise, Promise 2.0, and dual admission specifically. So they're the ones that are case managing the students that are coming to us from our local area and ensuring that they're staying on track. They know which courses they need to take, create and complete that comprehensive educational plan in that first year. So that those students that don't require as much support can navigate the system on their own, but then also those that do require that additional support build that sense of cohesion, sense of belonging to the program, to the counselors, and also be connected to the different resources that is a pipeline to CSULB, in which case they then take advantage of those resources once they transfer as well.
Got it. Thank you, Noel. I wanted to go back to Jaden. I was hoping you could expand a little bit, Jaden, on, you mentioned one of the things that you've taken advantage of in the advanced program that you like is this idea that you have access to the George Mason campus and the resources there. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? What exactly, like, have you joined clubs, access the libraries? What have you taken advantage of at George Mason, and how does it work? I mean, do you basically have a student ID card at George Mason, or could you tell us a little bit about that element of the program?
Yeah, so it works. Okay, cool. Yeah, so a couple resources I personally use. I explored the campus with a couple friends. I have some friends that are on campus. Well, first off, yeah, I was given a George Mason ID card, so I was able to and a G number, so I was able to go into places that require an ID card. You can either there's like an app, but there's also I like the physical because there's my face on it. But a couple resources I've used was the library. It's pretty chill. It's a lot bigger than the ones I've been to on Nova campus at least. But then I've also access to their like Maker Lab, which is like this big area of just a ton of 3D printers and whatnot. While we have that at Nova, it's all the way far, far away because there's multiple campuses. So GMU is just a little bit closer. So there's a lot of resources and whatnot and really, really cool people there. And I've also had access to like, I have access to the gym and cafe and everything. I haven't used those resources because I have a gym down the street. But yeah, so those are the main things I kind of had access to or have access to. I do have access to joining clubs. I haven't because I have clubs that I'm a part of leadership on Nova side. That's like the only reason why. But yeah, so it's a fun experience because I actually feel like I'm almost 4 year, but not really 4 year because it's cheap. But yeah.
And to what degree, I know, I guess I'll turn to Noel or maybe April can weigh in or John, really anyone. To what degree is that a part of the programs in California? I know, like at Long Beach, I believe, as I think you mentioned a little bit, as part of the Promise 2.0, students can get an ID card for Cal State Long Beach. What kind of things do they get access to?
So at its inception, we folded in our dual admission students through our college promise. So what that enabled us to do is be able to cover the first 2 years of tuition for the students. They participate in a summer bridge program here at Long Beach City College, in which case we also bring in partners from Long Beach State so that they can start hearing from Long Beach State early on as they start their career at Long Beach City College. We do offer some book vouchers as well for students in need, as well as very specialized workshops to support transfer. Once they get close to that transfer period, we also assist them with the transfer application and the supplemental application as well. The Cal State Long Beach ID card was something that we started and piloted in fall 2019. We haven't necessarily agreed to take on any new dual admission students with that ID card yet. However, that is part of the conversations on how we can support and better support our dual admission students. For us locally, we have about 9 students this academic year that have identified and are following through with dual admissions. So we expect that number to continue to grow as we continue to receive interest and work with our local CSUs and UCs. We do have, of those 9, 7 that are interested in the CSU. And as April mentioned, it may not be CSU Long Beach per se. It may be other CSUs as well, and that's okay. We're here to support them. We do have 2 students that are interested in UC. As it relates, I know there was a comment in the Q&A or a question around do we have any partnerships or plan to have partnerships with our college promise and the UCs or AUC. We have been in conversations with potentially exploring a UC partner, but at this time we currently do not.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that. I'm curious, Hans, from a research perspective, do you know anything about this idea of students who are in the transfer pipeline getting access to resources at their future four-year university? From a research perspective, do you know of any benefits of that? Do you think there's any evidence that's a benefit to students?
Yeah, there's a research literature on belonging and students feeling like they are a part of, in this case, the four-year campus that they're going to end up going to. And that ability to kind of envision that for yourself is facilitated by having the kinds of opportunities that Jaden was just talking about. And the research literature suggests that does make a difference to students, that they have that sense of participation, belonging, agency that makes them more likely, to make that leap from the community college to the four-year college, and then be successful and feel at home once they get there.
Got it. And then April, in terms of, the resources is kind of what Noel described. Is that exist across the state in these dual admission programs? Or does it vary a lot to campus in terms of what resources students get access to?
So the library access is actually part of the legislation, and students do have access to libraries across the 23 CSUs. So not just at the library that they're interested in transferring, but their local CSU library. And then as far as what campuses are really focused the program in 2 ways, one, focusing on in-person events, and then also reaching out via Zoom or monthly webinars to their TSP population. So part of the transfer planner is that CSU advisors and community college counselors can email and communicate with students through the CSU Transfer Planner and specifically focus communications, events, support for dual admission students. So they are focused on really connecting with those students. Our campuses have been doing one-on-one advising with them, and we're also encouraging them after every term to come in and enter their coursework so they can really track what they're doing as far as their progress.
In with a question specifically for Jaden from the audience. Jaden, there's a question about the next step for you once you're ready to make that transfer. What does that look like for you? Do you have to do any additional paperwork? Have you already done the work that you need to do to make that transfer happen?
I'm almost done. I'm going to be graduating, should be graduating spring of 2025. So I already talked to my advanced coach, which basically he's like an advisor. Cool dude, kind of covers all the academic stuff, and like life stuff. But basically what I do is, I make sure that I have completed all the requirements at Nova. That's like the first thing. So make sure I have all my associate degree requirements 100% completed. The next thing is I have to make sure my advanced milestones are completed. Basically that's, I've already submitted all of my like medical records and things like that to George Mason. And then I schedule a pre-transfer meeting with my advanced coach. And that's basically just making sure all the things above were completed. And then he'll send an application to Mason, and then I basically go right through after that. So, it's kind of like, because I'm already a Mason student, I don't have to resubmit an application. I don't have to pay an application fee or anything like that because they have access to all my stuff already. I think that answers the question.
It does. Thank you, Jaden.
Okay.
And is that the case too in California when students are, when they complete their requirements at their community college and they're ready to transfer to the CSU? Is there much required of them? I know that they're guaranteed admission if they meet those requirements, but in terms of actually, the paperwork, things like that, what is the process like?
So first of all, there is no paperwork to sign up for the TSP program. They go on to the transfer planner and enter into the agreement, and then they have access to that 24/7. As far as the application process, we still do need an application. There are a lot of state and federal reporting requirements that we have to fulfill, and the admissions application is the main avenue for gathering that information. But starting in the fall on October 1st, students will have access to what we're calling their application jumpstart. So any information that they've put in the CSU transfer planner will be migrated to their Cal State Apply application. So there's less information for them to enter at the point of application. And then their status as a TSP or Transfer Success Pathway Program student will transfer with them as well, so that the campus knows exactly who they are when they receive their application for admission.
And how has that been beneficial to basically know the students up front who are in the program? Because a lot of times, obviously, in different pathways, you don't necessarily, if you're a CSU campus, you don't necessarily know the students that are planning to transfer until, they're ready to transfer and they're applying for transfer. Is it an advantage to know the students up front, 2 years ahead of time or 3 years ahead of time?
Yeah, it's a huge advantage for two purposes. One is for the student. So as I mentioned earlier, we have campuses doing those one-on-one advising sessions. And without TSP, our Transfer Success Pathway Program, and the transfer planner, we wouldn't know who they were until the time of application. So we're getting to connect with those students, make them part of the CSU community much earlier in the process. The other piece is for us to be able to look at capacity and when students have plans on transferring. So we already have breakdowns of all of the students. That's one of the key questions that we ask students when they sign up for the transfer planner is, when is their plan to transfer? So we can start looking years out as to how many students are interested in transferring, to which campus and to which major, which is really important for us to know for planning purposes.
Michael, there's another question that I think we'd like to direct John. There's a question that I see that you've seen regarding the acknowledgement that there's, the demand outstrips the supply in terms of these types of programs. So considering that, where do the community college baccalaureate degrees fit into this equation and helping these community college students?
And if you'll bear with me, let me back up just a little bit, because we're really focused on dual admission, and it's part of a giant picture of what California is trying to do to transform how our students have access to baccalaureate education. The Community College Chancellor's Office recently rolled out Vision 2030, which includes one of our primary goals is to work on equitable baccalaureate degree attainment. And the governor's roadmap for higher education calls out increases in baccalaureate attainment as well. And so you can see, I think, from the actions of the legislature and the government and all of our systems, we are trying to coordinate and figure out how to move that initiative forward. The larger scope is built around the associate degree for transfer, where there is supposed to be a set of courses that prepares a student at the community college to go to any CSU system. There are problems with that, and we are working on that. The AB 928 committee that created the Unified General Education Pattern also continues to work on how to improve the ADT process to make that available, the pathway part available to students. In addition, Berman's 1111 bill about common course numbering is envisioned to make it easier for students to see the courses that they need to take would be the same at 116 colleges, to move through that system and be recognized by CSU or UC as fulfilling those requirements they need to complete their baccalaureate degree. There are smaller projects, the Transfer Articulation Project that the community colleges are working with the UC system about as well. And when we look at that big picture, I think where we see there is too much need for people to have access to the baccalaureate degree. There are also community college baccalaureate degrees that fit into that. And what happens if you want to go to a community college that has a baccalaureate degree, but you are at a different community college for your lower division, right? All the same issues about transfer show up in that. And so when we talk about dual admission, I think this is one piece where we are trying to make sure that students who maybe didn't get into the CSU or UC of their choice right out of high school can enter into an agreement where they know if they complete this at the community college, and the community college will help them complete their degrees, usually the ADT, that they will be able to go to that specific CSU or UC campus. And that is especially important for our place-bound students who can't go 100 miles or 500 miles to a program. They have family, they have commitments, they have lives that they are unable to move that way. And this is a program that I think is really helpful. And I'm really excited to see how CSU has really broadened that out and rolled that out. And those regional partnerships that we talk about are where we can make those connections and make those students feel at home in higher education, that they belong here with us and with CSU and with UC. So I hope that's a big picture, but I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I think you covered a lot of ground with that answer. Thank you.
If I can just add, and maybe this was a point that Michael made earlier, the idea of connecting with our students early in their educational career. So whether that be our dual admission students that are attending the California Community College system for the first time, but bringing in our CSU or UC partners early at the same time, the students start seeing themselves as jointly enrolled and or as part of both cultures and both systems. So the more we can do that as an institution, as a system, the more students are going to feel like they belong. You heard a lot about sense of belonging and mattering here on this call. And absolutely, the more we can engage with our students with those high touch opportunities, the more likely they are to stay involved, stay engaged, and transfer to that next level. But also providing those opportunities at the high school level, right? So not to confuse folks, but the expansion of dual enrollment at our high school sites. We have our first graduating class at Browning High School of 25 students that are completing their ADT in hospitality in addition to getting their high school diploma. So now out of high school, they're academically prepared to make that transition to a local CSU or a UC. But the more we can envision ways to engage students early, the more accessible we make higher education and that seamless pipeline through it.
And just to clarify, since you did bring up dual enrollment students, for at least for the CSU program, I know they are eligible for dual admission, correct?
Yes, dual enrollment students are eligible for admission to the Transfer Success Pathway program.
Got it. And I also wanted to follow up on something John said because I had planned to ask about basically how or whether the ADT can work in conjunction with dual admission. But John, correct me if I'm wrong. Is it the case that a lot of students who are in dual admission are basically still completing an ADT, or is that not what you meant? And if not, I guess I'm just curious, how do you think those two programs might or might not be able to work together?
They should align. Whether they do or not is a point of, I think the local needs to determine that. But from a systems level at the state, if there is an agreed upon pathway and here are the courses that are required for that student, they should be able to take them anywhere and be prepared.
So just to expand on that, the CSU has additional transfer options besides an associate degree for transfer. So still over about 50% of students transfer to a CSU with no degree, so no AA or ADT degree. And then we have students who receive an associate's degree for transfer but don't intend to transfer to that major. So there's 40 associate degree for transfer pathways. So we sometimes see in about 50% of the cases for ADT students, they have a degree, an ADT from their community college in one major and actually apply for a different major at the CSU. So as long as students meet the admissions requirements or the additional major prerequisite requirements, they're eligible to transfer and participate in the TSP program.
And I'm curious, so because obviously it's such a big decision for students to pick, not just the campus they're going to, but the major that they're going to be in, the program they're going to be in. So if a student, they start in the dual admission program their first year, and they pick their campus, let's say they want to go to Long Beach or and they have their major, are they locked into that, for, or is there room while they're still at community college to change their mind, change their major, or change their campus, or are they basically locked into that agreement?
So students do need to transfer within 3 years. So the longer that it takes them to maybe make a major change, it would impact that ability to transfer within 3 years. So it would be dependent on the campus and the major that they've locked into that agreement with. Some campuses are working with students if they decide that they want to change their major. The program also doesn't prohibit students from applying to other CSU campuses. So they could lock into, do a transfer success pathway agreement with Cal State Long Beach and then decide that they also want to apply to Fullerton and Dominguez Hills or other campuses to, pursue a different campus. So they have that option to do that as well.
And just to clarify, it's all 23, because I know on the UC side, it's 6 out of the 9 undergraduate campuses, basically everyone but Berkeley, UCLA, and San Diego, I believe, are participating in their dual admission. But at CSU, can you clarify, it's all 23 campuses, but not necessarily every program at every campus?
That is correct. All 23 CSU campuses are participating in Transfer Success Pathway, but not every major is available. And that really has to do with not being able to figure out what those admissions requirements should be 2 or 3 years from now. And also programs like nursing, it's highly differentiated as well. So, but all 23 campuses are participating. Last year was our first year with the program. So I know some of our campuses have already stated they're going to open many more majors for the next cohort.
And we had a question from the audience that they were asking for clarification. Is the dual admission program available just to recent high school graduates, or is it open to students who are already in community college in some cases?
So it's really
dependent. I'm sorry, I was just going to say it depends if you're going to CSU or UC.
John's correct, but I'll answer from the CSU side. It is we are limiting the program to what we call first-time freshmen. So first-time freshmen are students that have not taken any college coursework after the summer that they graduated high school. So I could have taken a gap year. I could have, went to work and then decided to enroll in the community college. But again, to keep students on track and to ensure that they are in that 2 to 3 year transfer timeline, we are kind of limiting the cohorts for the program. And so for the fall 24 cohort, it will be for students who are starting at a California community college in fall 24 term. And the enrollment period for the program is August 1st to September 30th. We've also sent Transfer Success Pathway and Transfer Planner brochures to all of the community college transfer centers so they have that information on hand. We're also encouraging the community colleges to promote this program during their new student orientations. We provided a couple slides last year to help with the promotion of the program.
And since these programs are, again, they're in their first year, is there going to be any sort of evaluation planned? Are there reports required to the state at all to sort of evaluate how things are going and maybe change certain elements, or how will that work?
Well, I can tell you that there are within the legislation, which was AB 132, which was signed on July 27th, 2021, there are reporting requirements due in 2026 of both the programs. As I said earlier, the legislation called this a pilot program. So the CSU has decided this is a permanent program. So we won't be doing away with the program as the sunset timeline that's in the legislation. So as legislators look at this program and evaluate it, I'm sure we might see other legislation as we move forward.
Got it. And Jaden, just to turn to you in in Virginia, what are the rules around? Do I remember correctly that you said you did change your major while you were in the program? And what was that process like? Was that easy to do? And did that delay you at all? Or
So for changing my major, I went from computer science to computer engineering. At Nova, I basically just stayed as an engineering major, but what really changed was the prereqs that they wanted me to take at Nova. So it was really an easy swap. So I went to my academic coach and I was like, "Hey, John, I made a terrible decision and I'm changing my major." And he looked at me like I was insane because I'm almost done. And then I swapped my major to computer engineering. So it did extend my semester by like two-ish. It's a couple extra like sciences and like 3 engineering courses. But yeah, it was really easy swap.
and I wanted to, I hope I have time for at least one more question, but Jaden mentioned this in Virginia. One thing I found really interesting is they have dedicated counselors for the advanced program. And I know we've talked about, there not being new funding in California, but if there was, additional funding, is that something that might be where that funding would go? Is that something that you think whether it's Noel or really anyone, the colleges could benefit from is having more counselors or having counselors that are, dedicated to this, to dual admission?
I would say absolutely, especially those under-resourced regions and community colleges that may not have the extensive counseling staff or technology to really effectively implement, the tracking as we have here at Long Beach City College, for example. So I think that would be, as a whole, beneficial for our California community colleges. And there's a lot of advantages of doing so.
Yeah, I would agree that having counselors or advisors dedicated to this program would be super supportive. And one of the reasons that we created the transfer planner and have a community college portal is to give community college counselors that don't have some of those resources the ability to track all of their students, see all of their general education tracking, which majors they're interested in the CSU, and then also communicate with the students that have signed up for transfer planner accounts, as well as the transfer success pathway program. So our goal is to get everyone looking at the same information, the student, the CSU, and the community college counselor. So we all have one source of information to really support and counsel these students through the process and their journey.
Well, actually, I just wanted to jump in as we near the end of our time. I want to ask you all if there's anything you want to leave, what note you want to leave this roundtable on, and maybe I would just go around the horn, and maybe we'll end with Jaden. But in terms of solutions, in terms of your wishes for what could be and the possibilities here in California, what would they be? John, do you want to take a start?
I dream big, Anne. Are you sure you want me to start? I would love to see the vision of 928 and 1111 come to fruition, where our students can enter our education systems at the community college and know exactly what they want to, what they need to accomplish to be able to go where they want to go. And that those doors for transfer or community college baccalaureate degrees are open to them, and that we have the space for them wherever they wish to go. I would love to see that implementation. I think that would be a huge impact on transfer.
Hans.
I agree with John. Dream big, system-wide, systems working together, seamlessness, common course numbering, reaching out to students aggressively. I mean, we have tools and the ability to do things differently now than in the past, certainly through electronic means. Just as an example, Idaho identifies students who are eligible for the University of Idaho system based on their high school records, and tells them without them even, and then they don't even have to apply to the university to be admitted. It's just one example, but it's an example of some of the things that I would love to see happen in California. I think this is a step in the right direction. The ADT grew rapidly, still needs work. I hope this goes rapidly, and kudos to CSU for being aggressive in this.
April.
I definitely agree with John. We are very much looking forward to AB 1111 and 928 and the CalGETC pattern to really streamline the general education process for community college students. I think this is a huge game changer. And so we are just super excited about that coming in 2025. And then we are continuing to aggressively promote and get transfer success pathway out there. We would love to see every student that's transitioning from high school and decides that the community college pathway is their pathway that they need to take, really enroll in the transfer success pathway program so we can support them early in their process and help them through this transfer journey.
Thank you, April. Noel.
So you heard on the systems level these big dreams and obviously echoed. I would say on the local level, some recommendations that I would offer include try to enter into conversations of starting data sharing agreements with your local CSUs. That really helps facilitate a deeper dive and to understand who our students are and what they might need. Secondly, I would say join in joint programming with your local CSUs, where you're able to take students to those CSUs as well as have CSU events on your campus. And then lastly, really find student-centered ways to help build the connection to higher education, whether that be those programs at your community college, but also those programs and supports at the four-year.
And Jaden, what if you could give a piece of advice to students, you know, who are looking to transfer and considering these types of programs, what would you offer them?
So these types of programs, at least for me, allows me to be able to explore a little better. And transferring in general is really, really chaotic. So I think like the one advice is just be willing to explore while you're at a community college, find out what you want to do, and then get into this program so that when you head over to whatever four-year university you're ending up at, you know exactly what you want to do. So you don't have to spend all that extra money and all that extra time flipping in between different majors. I think that's the biggest thing.
Good advice. Well, I want to thank every panelist for their time today, for your participation, for the great conversation. To our moderator, Michael, for a fabulous moderation, great questions from the audience. Thank you for the engagement. And again, a big thanks to the Crimson Bridge Foundation for making today's conversation possible.